All right, Michael, I propose that I read to you a little part of our book, and then we can discuss it. Try to get into the subtext.
Like we did over what? How many months?
See, we not only can read the book, taking testing seriously, our new book about testing, but we can read between the lines and beyond the margins. And
Off the page.
behind the page.
Mm.
Yes, this is taking testing seriously after hours, right? Okay, so I'm gonna read from chapter 7, and I want you to react and comment.
All right.
This is from chapter 7. This is the beginning of talking about AI and testing, using AI in testing. So I shall now read. Okay, here we go. What if we could test by magic? Artificial intelligence is now a major factor to consider in all forms of knowledge work. Developments in AI keep coming. There's no way a book like this, constructed from the organic experiences and thoughts of humans from a certain era, can say exactly what is coming. Nevertheless, there is a helpful way to talk about artificial intelligence that is proof against all possible futures. We can talk about magic. So consider a magic testing box. You don't know how it works, but according to the leprechaun who gave it to you, when you place it near a product to be tested and perform the appropriate ceremonies of activation, it finds and reports bugs in that product. Pretty nice, huh? Not necessarily. To a professional tester, to anyone taking testing seriously, it may be more of a burden than a boon. This is because the magic box sets for you a puzzle that you cannot ignore. Did it do a good job?
Mm.
The honest looking leprechaun assured you that it works. Works. Well, let's put that in quotes. It works.
Yeah.
But let's say that taking other people's word for what constitutes good testing is not your style. Okay, so that's the first part of that chapter, introducing the idea of a magic testing box. What do you think about that?
Well, one of the things that I would like to underscore, which is implicit in the text, but perhaps not explicit in it, is did it do a good job is one thing. Will it do a good job next time is another. And of course, there's a question hanging in the air. What constitutes a good job? And that's a question that's framed by people's contexts, their needs and desires, their notions of what they value and what they don't care about so much. It is framed by risk. What happens if it didn't do a good job? And that, I guess, we go into quite a bit of that in the rest of the book and in the rest of the chapter. But that's the essence, not just of AI, but of any kind of technology. Did it do a good job, and will it do a good job?
This is really a deep and kind of disturbing thing because I can take my car and I can accelerate and go right through a red light and not get hit by another car. And if I did that, someone might say that was a very productive way of getting through that. You were so fast. And look, you got to McDonald's to get that Big Mac so much faster than you otherwise would have. This is a great productivity increase.
Nothing bad happened.
Nothing bad happened. But you can look at that situation and go, wait a minute, something horrible could have happened. Just because you see only a good result doesn't mean that that was good driving.
I
And
remember.
similarly,
Mm,
if you ask AI, I just read a blog post about this. Some famous authors, fantasy book authors, including my favorite fantasy book author, Robin Hobb. They did this little experiment where each of them wrote a little short story, and then they had AI write some short stories, and then they try to get their friends or fans or something to decide, like, vote on which was the one that came from AI and which came from the humans. And
imitation game.
as you might expect these days, there was a disturbing inability of people to tell which one was AI and which one was the real author. And some people might look at that and say, well, that proves that AI is pretty good at writing. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. I am not a fiction author. I only write nonfiction because I'm terrible at writing fiction. And I know that. Okay. I could have competed in this process as well. And one thing I might have done is gone onto Google Books and searched for some piece of fiction from 1848 that that's obscure and that nobody knows about, unless you happen to search on Google Books. I could have taken that, stolen it, just copied it, and submitted it as if it were my work. And then people might have said, if they didn't catch on to I was doing this, especially if I edited it a little bit to modernize the language, they might have said, whoa, I didn't realize James Bach was such an excellent fiction author. This is quite a well constructed story. I guess he must be a competent writer. But I'm not a competent writer. And here's the difference between submitting good work one time and competence is that competence is a predictor of future performance, but faking it is not. So just because you got through that red light one time is not a predictor that you have discovered a faster way of driving, one weird trick, that they hate it when you do this, but they can't stop you. That's right. They can't stop you from running red lights. You're free to do that.
I
Um,
think the discourse these days is well, red lights will be with us forever. Running red lights, we just have to adapt to running red lights.
the world is changed. You have to go along with it. But in a way, that's really true. I mean, it sounds absurd, but to use a dark example, for instance, I remember being 12 years old in middle school and wondering, why don't kids bring guns to school and shoot each other? It's just one of those weird things, like, hey, nobody ever brings a gun to school and kills anybody else. And I kind of wonder why that doesn't happen. I guess people just are fundamentally sane, and I was also thinking, like, I'd like to burn down this school. Why don't I just burn down this school? Because I'm not crazy. That's what I told myself.
Hmm.
Because I'm fundamentally not crazy. So there are lines that I won't cross. And I was having this dialogue with myself when I was 12 years old because I was having a really hard time in school and I was very angry. But I was musing to myself about the lines that I wouldn't cross. And then apparently no one else would cross either. And then years later, no, school shootings are a thing. And
Yeah.
so you realize that some of this is really just like people decide to behave responsibly, but that can change. And society can decide to abandon responsible behavior if it becomes the fashion.
It reminds me of the headline from The Onion, right? That they, I mean, it is very dark, but they put this out after every mass shooting of any significance. No way to defend against this, says only nation on earth where this happens all the time.
Yeah,
You
quite
know,
appropriate. Yes.
it's grim, but the
Yeah.
point that it's a result of choices that we make, that we have made, and choices that we can rescind if we choose to do so. The
Yeah.
hard problem, maybe.
Yeah.
We've got to address hard problems sometimes.
You know,
That's
that brings me to my fan theory about Star Trek, which is I think that the 1967 version of Star Trek, they have the ship's computer, and they
computer
ask the ship's computer stuff, and the ship's computer says working,
working.
and it's this monotone female voice, working, calculations complete, that sort of thing. And my fan theory is that 100 years before that, they had ship's computers that talked in a normal human conversational voice, just like you and me talking. And
So
they
this is in the year
realized,
2500. They had the or
yeah,
star
this
date,
like 100 star date, whatever, 100 years before that.
right?
They just routinely had completely conversational, indistinguishable from human interaction with the ship's computer. And they realized that this was hazardous, that they couldn't stop people from anthropomorphizing the ship's computer and thinking that it was a responsible social agent. And they thought, what can we do about this? And they decided they had to make the AI behave in ways that were very distinct from human social interaction. And
I
so
will consider the alternative possibility that here's a world of technology where you can go from star to star, but they haven't developed a natural language interface for the computer that
it's
sounds like
absurd to think they couldn't do better with their AI. It's absolutely absurd. Of course they could. So they must have chosen not to. You
well,
see?
the interesting thing was, I remember another episode in which it appears that they had not solved the halting problem still. Remember, because I think the Spock or somebody asked the computer to calculate the value of pi to the last digit. And apparently there's a bug in the guardrails and the computer gets tied up. And I don't know what they had to do, but it was a computer that was going to take over. And so Spock gives it this.
Oh, they were trying to drive a spirit. The spirit of Jack the Ripper it was possessing the computer, and they had to drive it out. And the
Was
only way
that
you
the
can drive
episode?
it out, the only way you can drive out the spirit is by using the GPU excessively. And I think it's probably the heat from the processors that drove the spirit out. It's just too hot. See, when spirits possess electronics, they like to have a nice 72 degrees, nice room temperature, or if anything, a little colder. You'd think that's a little counterintuitive because, hell is hot, but they want a little bit, they run hot. Spirits, evil spirits, especially evil spirits, they run hot. They need a nice, cool environment. So I think that's probably what Spock's theory was to get the spirit out.
So that spirits returns us neatly to magic boxes, doesn't it?
Magic, exactly. That's interesting how we've burst back into the lobby of magic boxes.
And
We
this is
haven't,
exactly, by the way, the process that we went through to write the book, which is
yes,
we would go off on these flights of diversion and
this is why it took 55 months to write the book. Although
yeah,
it was really 55 months sounds like a long time, but it only got intense in the last 24 months.
yeah.
That was when we really buckled down to get this thing done.
And we would only have 2 or 3 conversations like this one an hour, right?
Yeah.
That's when we
We have
because
conversations like this. This is the way our collaboration works. We have a lot of patience for humor because sometimes through humor we make breakthroughs.
you're reminding me right now the title of this book right over here. This was not set up, but I know exactly where to find this book. Play is exploratory learning.
Right. Play is exploratory learning. It's a rare book. It's a
It's
rare book.
it's out of print. It's hard to find. You got a copy too?
I do.
But that playful process is central to learning, and I would argue
A
it's
copy.
central to eight. There you go. Mention copies.
These are like the last two copies on Earth, I suspect.
Maybe. Well, they might be in the AI training data. But uh, this is what the process of testing is like too. It's what the process of development is like. And it's really interesting to me how certain kinds of process enthusiasts want to sweep that under the rug, want to make it go away because it doesn't look or feel immediately productive. And I think that's part of the appeal of GPTs is that they produce massive volumes of stuff without even thinking about it. Off they go. And the output looks impressive, but it has not gone through that kind of reflective, playful, uh, um, um, and sometimes a serendipitous process of discovery. That's essential to what I think good testing and good design and good development are all about.
Well, kind of speaking of that, and going back to AI again,
Mm.
as a lark, I decided after we delivered the book to the publisher, I thought, why did it take 55 months to do that? AI could have written this book in minutes. So let's just try to write the book with AI right now. So I prepared a prompt for every chapter of the book, and I did one of them. I typed in the prompt for chapter 3, which is how to do a test. And ChatGPT spit out in seconds in the style of James Bach. And there's a bunch of my blog posts and stuff that are in its training data, so it knows something about me. Uh, it wrote the chapter how to do a test. It was full of bullets and a few emojis, I think, were in there too. Uh,
God, really?
not that many, but some
Talk about
emoji
not being in your style. An emoji anti-fan.
lots of bullets, and it had at least several sentences that I could endorse wholeheartedly. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that I would have said. In fact, I probably did say it on my blog at some point. So I think it pulled some
There.
stuff. It might have pulled quotes directly from my blog or my writings
Figure
elsewhere.
that out. We could look for strings. We could
We,
do
we, we
a,
could.
an
Uh,
engram.
for some of the other things, it said things that were loosely what I might have said, loosely, but not as sharp as I would have said them. A little too vague, a little too hacky, and
Hmm.
we always try to write in a sharp, original way, and uh, and avoid cliches. So there were some cliches in there, and then there were some things where wrote it wrote something. I'd say, no way, no, 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 no. That's not true. I would never have said that.
Your endorsement of certifications. As an example there.
But here's one overriding impression that I got compared to the real chapter that we actually wrote. What ChatGPT came up with was a mulching and remixing of stuff that you and I have already publicly said many times. But the actual work that we did in this book includes a lot of new ideas that we have never said anywhere else, except in our classes. A lot of this stuff is stuff that we've said in our trainings, we've made points like this in our exercises and stuff like that. But and then that's when I realized that there's no way that I could have asked ChatGPT to write what I actually would write, because one of the reasons it took so long to write the book is we were synthesizing ideas that we had never put together in just that way. Like this whole thing about magic boxes, about
Yeah.
like the reason why we talked about magic boxes, this reason why I came up with the concept is I was trying to solve the problem of how do I talk about AI when AI is constantly changing? Like
Yes.
any example I use is going to be wrong. It's going to be outdated.
It's funny because every book on software testing that's explicitly about any kind of particular technique or any kind of particular technology is vulnerable to that problem. And, we see it. I remember when I first started teaching RST myself, one of the examples that we used for the kind of testing that you would want to do in an input field was to test those two characters that are adjacent to A, little a and big A, and adjacent to little z and big Z, to see if they were being filtered properly. That would be the boundary for the equivalence class. Now technology has mostly made that level of granularity irrelevant most of the time. That kind of test is something we don't really do very much anymore, or at least we probably shouldn't bother with it in the same way that there was a serious risk of that things happening on that boundary. Now character processing is handled differently using libraries and so on and so forth that are parts of reasonably well established use and field testing. So every kind of technology is vulnerable to that, but AI especially, for two reasons. One, it's changing really rapidly, and the other is nobody's quite sure about what it means. It essentially has been used to brand all kinds of things, including stuff that were never AI in the first place. They were just case statements or if statements. But if it looks clever, then it looks intelligent, and it's obviously artificial because it's software, so you can call it artificial intelligence. But making that timeless is a real challenge for any testing book, especially this one.
That's why we had to invoke a magic box.
Yeah.
Like, let's pretend that the technology is fantastic and amazing, but there still is this problem.
Opaque. That's another thing. Opaque to us. We can't see into the box.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes it magic.
Mm.
Say you don't know how it works. Nobody knows how magic works. Otherwise they wouldn't call it magic.
I love the reference. It shows up later. Can you go to the passage where we talk about what Malinowski discovered? That's a really neat.
Malinowski. I'm looking. Oh,
through the proofs there.
I'm looking for Malinowski.
Use tools. Control F.
No, I got it.
There you
go. Okay, so well, to talk about Malinowski, we have to talk about the first and second heuristic of magic boxes.
Okay.
All right. So here's the first heuristic of magic boxes. If something matters very much, do not rely on magic to obtain it.
Sensible.
The second heuristic is, if something matters very much and you have no other way to get it, you might as well try magic.
Why not? Might work.
I shall now read from there. The first heuristic applies to love, success, anything else, and of course to software testing. The heuristic is not suggesting that you can't or shouldn't use a magic box, only that relying on it is dangerous. The second heuristic we offer you with a sigh, although both heuristics are popular, it's telling that even in societies that are comfortable and open about the use of magical charms and rituals, they also accomplish things with skill, procedures, and other mundanities. In Bronislaw Malinowski's time among the Melanesian islanders, he noted that not one single Masawa canoe has been constructed without magic, but also that the natives understand that magic, however efficient, will not make up for bad workmanship.
Boy, oh
So,
boy.
yes, now an interesting story behind that is I found out about Bronislaw Malinowski's work, which he did in the 20s, by reading a book about anomalistic psychology. So, anomalistic psychology is the psychology of magical thinking.
Mm,
And years ago, Jerry Weinberg suggested that I look into that to research anomalistic psychology because I might find clues about software testing and the psychology of testing by looking at the opposite of that, the psychology of magical thinking. So I bought a bunch of books on ritual and magic and in anthropology. And one of the books was talking about Malinowski's work and said that Malinowski found that even in a society that valued magic, the that society is not going to use magic for mundane things, but only for things that they don't have control over.
right,
So I
right,
thought
right.
that was a really interesting point. So I decided to go and see for myself what Malinowski said in his book. And he says no such thing. I read it carefully. No, he doesn't say that. What he actually says is these people use magic for fucking everything. They use it for everything. These, like, they use it for gardening, they use it for mundane things. Yes, they use it for mundane things, they use it for dangerous things, they use it for everything. So I could find no support in the materials from Malinowski that supported the this claim that was made about Malinowski's work, which just goes to show you have to follow the references or you're going to be embarrassed, you know. So we referred to more than 100 books and papers in our book. And every one of them, I made sure that that reference is relevant. So you can check me out on that.
Hmm.
But I did find lots of useful stuff in Malinowski. And he goes into detail, for instance, about all the things that they do with magic to build a canoe. And he has a table actually where he goes through the stages of building a canoe and then for every stage he lists the particular magical song that is sung or the ritual that is performed and he names all that. And then there's this one stage where he says no magic is used. I think it's something like moving the log from one place to another after they cut down the tree. They don't have like a magic thing for that, for whatever reason. And I just kind of wonder, like, why don't they have a magic thing for that? Like, what? Why not? What
But
made them say, "Hey, wait, we are using too much magic here. We really have to dial back the magic."
in software, that'd be saying, let's just use a Python script for that. We can do that. That's straightforward.
You
We
don't
don't
need to use
need.
AI for that.
It's interesting you mentioned the songs
Yeah.
because in societies that are not literate, stuff gets transmitted and institutionalized in a way in the culture by song, story, poem, pointing up to the sky and looking at the constellations, which uh, tie you in to ideas and stories, and the stories and ideas tie you into the constellations. And it it reminds me of those scholars, that conference in Toronto in 1988. One of them, Eric Havelock, was wondering, was literacy really that great idea? Because it does disassociate ourselves from that web of memory and meaning and
Well, Socrates made that point.
I guess, yeah, that you might have to check my references on that to
Socrates at one point said, like kids these days, like they can't remember anything because they write stuff down and
well, that's a bit from Phaedrus, where he's referring to the king of Egypt being presented with the gift of writing from Thoth, the Egyptian god. And Thoth says, "Hey, I got this great thing for you. You're going to love it. It's called writing. It'll prevent you from forgetting things." And the king of Egypt says, "You know what, you Thoth, as an inventor, you're probably really proud of your invention, but reading and writing will plant forgetfulness in people's minds.
oh,
That we will come to rely on this technology that you've developed called writing, and they won't remember how to remember." And that, I think, to some degree, that's true. Having spent a week at a folk music, a traditional music camp, uh, a lot of stuff gets captured in the lore and in the songs and in the structures. You
well, my
can't.
son is 31, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't know his own phone number. I'm pretty sure if you were to ask him what his phone number is, he's like, "Let me check."
But at the same time, think about it. Why should he know that? Why should he know a number as opposed to a person? Let the machinery handle that. That's okay with me, as long as the machinery is doing a good job.
As long as it's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we had some reason to believe that it sometimes would not give the correct number, then it would be more important to memorize that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, your story about Egypt reminds me that of Sargon II.
Yeah.
So we have a clay tablet that has been translated as a message from Sargon II, the king of
Assyria, I think, or something like
yeah,
that.
king of Assyria. That's right. And the Akkadians, the king of the Akkadians.
Acadians with the two Ks.
Yeah,
AKKA.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Them.
the fragment that has been the things that has survived of this clay tablet is his response to his agents in Egypt or somewhere who were asking if they could please use Aramaic and parchment for official communications, and Sargon replies, "No, it is the rule that you must use Akkadian speech, and this is a fixed regulation."
You've got to use it in clay tablets too.
And that right, that's cuneiform. That's what it was. He
Right.
was saying you got to use cuneiform in clay tablets. And the only reason we know that he made this point is that there is a clay tablet. If this all happened on parchment, we'd have no record of it, which just goes to show you should never upgrade your technology. We went wrong as soon as we went to parchment.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Parchment.
know, parchment. It was parchment, then it was floppy disks, and then just the world went to hell, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You should never change your language either, because I've looked at the cuneiform and I can't make head or tail of it. I'm just one of these ignorant moderns who I can't read cuneiform anymore, and therefore the ancient wisdom has been lost to me. What's interesting though is that ancient wisdom. I've been going through Stephen Fry's Greek myths. It is amazing how technology has changed, landscapes have changed, climate is changing, has changed, but boy, are people ever reliably the same. And the gods, the gods are like this marvelous dysfunctional family. You know, they're petty, they're spiteful, they're sometimes virtuous, enormously entertaining, but they are as as modern as last Tuesday. You know, these patterns of behavior and desire and uh, uh, the uh, the pathologies. They're all there, and that's from what pushing 3,000 years ago, easy.
I
Uh,
want to see a large language model that's trained only on sources that go up to 500 BC, and just you'd be just talking with Zeus, basically.
so it would warn us against DBase 4 or ChatGPT 5. You know, ChatGPT 5 does seem to be the DBase 4 of OpenAI. For those of you who are familiar with the ancient scrolls, the tell of the lore of
Yeah,
DBase 4 from the times before.
I think it would get pretty tiresome though, because it would be always talking about sacrifices. The LLM would always be saying like, "Have you sacrificed a white bull yet?" Maybe that's how you're going to get an answer to your question.
Yeah. First obtain a goat.
Yeah, that's right. As a large language model, I cannot obtain goats for you.
So
So,
anyway, that's a little introduction, I guess, to our tour
yeah,
through magic boxes, and we will have more to say on the subject, I anticipate. And then there's this book that slated to come out November 4th, 2025. Is that right?
November 4th, 2025.
That's a current.
Will
That's the date
be
we have as of today. So
it'll be out. Yeah. Well, this video will live past
that
the date
date.
we're doing it today, which is August 20th, 2025.
So it's either
Uh,
will be released November 4th, 2025, or it was released November 4th,
was
2020.
released, and this is ancient history.
And if you're watching it on exactly the right day, it was released today.